Hey, this is Mark Wahlstrom. Welcome to the Settlement Channel. Well, in my commentary last week, I opened up the idea and conversation on whether or not structured settlement annuities, which are used to fund structured settlement payment programs, need to be sold under the fiduciary standard. My discussion centered around a series of events in the profession, specifically the AIG class action suit, which is alleging a degree of deception or undisclosed information on pricing and compensation, as well as the Department of Labor rule that the Trump administration announced they're going to review toward reducing some of its more harsh compliance requirements on retirement account management. Well, since that video and commentary, the Trump administration rule has been formally announced as being reviewed, and professionals can anticipate that some, if not all, of the more punitive compliance measures that rule contained are going to be eliminated or softened, so that commission investments can be sold to retirement account investors and not subject to fiduciary rule standards. So what does this all have to do with structured settlement annuity funding, which enjoys a historic exemption from not only the fiduciary standard rules, but also the more recent NAIC, and that's the National Association of Insurance Commissioner rules, which mandate greater training, compliance, disclosure, and suitability standards for the sale of annuity contracts in 27 states, a number of which is certain to grow in the coming months as more and more states adopt those NAIC standards as well. You see, as a 30-year veteran of the structured settlement and settlement planning profession, I've witnessed a lot of changes, but our little niche profession seems to sit here in a quiet, sheltered place where the same rules applied to retirement investors, retail annuity investors, and others simply don't apply to us. We are not required to do suitability standard analysis. We are in almost every instance working as agents, not brokers or fiduciaries, when we set up a structured settlement program. And this vitally important irrevocable annuity package, which involves minors, injury victims, widows, and others, relies on our analysis, which is not overseen by a regulatory body similar to that which other professionals must adhere and answer to. Now, I believe this is about to change, and that a move toward a full fiduciary disclosure standard and a clear declaration at the time of sale, whether we are agents, brokers, advisors, or registered representatives, at the time that we make that recommendation, is going to be the professional standard required by trial lawyers in every case going forward. As evidence, I point to the fact that just about every major bank and brokerage firm recently declared in a Wall Street Journal article that even if the Department of Labor softens rules and backs away from the fiduciary standard, those banks and brokers intend to keep most, if not all, of the protections and compliance in place, as they believe it is in the direction consumers are going and that regulators will adhere to in the future. In short, most of the big guys are deciding that self-policing and setting a higher bar is good business and will avoid issues in the future. Now, I believe the structured settlement profession needs to do the same thing in light of this litigation and what our peers in other areas of finance are going through. We can set a higher bar voluntarily, or we can have one imposed upon us by courts, litigation, and regulators. I think we'd be wise to choose self-discipline rather than the heavy hand of regulation and the risk of litigation. The tide is turning, and we as professionals need to be ready. Full disclosure, clear and honest communication of what role we are playing when giving advice, and a compensation model that makes clear who our clients are and the cost of our services is not just a good standard, it's good business. Well, next week I'm going to take a look at another issue in this area, which is the increasing number of structured settlement professionals who are getting their RIA designation or setting up registered investment advisory offices. What are the risks and rewards of this business model? And how does the client that we're dealing with clearly understand whether they are talking with an agent, a broker, a registered representative, or a registered investment advisor? Each role has very different rules, standards, and obligations, and we as a profession are very often blurring the lines between them, and that's to our peril, and it's a disservice to the clients. I'll be back again next week. This is Mark Wahlstrom. Have a great week.